Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the human race. I am here to talk about something very interesting. The last video I did on a subject was known as Irvin Welsh, but today I'm going to be talking about the raimi cut of Spider-Man 3. So let's get started. Everyone knows that Spider-Man 3 is definitely the worst of the series, and I have to admit, I like it a lot more due to its insanity. It's very silly, but it's also charming like the other films. And basically kind of ended the franchise since the Raimi had trouble with the studio. The most interesting thing is that there might have been secret reshoots due to basically seen in a Comic-Con trailer. This has led some people online to dub it known as "We Want the Raimi Cut." Many of these scenes are not featured in the film, possibly due to the length. But would you be okay having a 3-hour-long Spider-Man 3? Or would it be awesome? I shall not show any footage of this, copyright reasons, but I only shall show you pictures of what the thing will look like. Some of these pictures are in very low quality, since one of them is from a Comic-Con trailer that was released in 2006. But I will admit that basically some of these are really interesting to check out. For instance, there are some interesting ones, like, well, some scenes that were cut, and there is also an animatic of Venom's original death. And basically, let's talk about some of the things. I shall also leave a link in the description to a video that explains a lot more of these scenes. So let's get into the main ones that I find really interesting. Here's a piece of that scene where basically Sandman fought Spider-Man. Here's a wee bit more of it, and what I can see from here, it does look pretty cool. I would like to see more of the extended part of that scene, because it's possibly one of the best action scenes within the film. A lot of them are really good, but still, this one was really good, and I would like to see it in the film if they do a Raimi cut. This scene right here is probably an unfinished version of CGI swinging, but I do understand why some of the scenes were unfinished, due to the budget. For Christ's sake, the film had like $1 billion behind it. It's one of the biggest budget films at the time, and I probably think they couldn't afford everything to do with that amount of money. But still, it still looks good. And before I bring up any more of this stuff, I would mention that this exists, but it isn't the full-on director's cut. So let's mention some of the shots that were in the teaser trailer that were in the film known as the editor's cut. Let's see some of the scenes. A scene where Spider-Man's swinging through the city in his black suit, which was added into the film, but I don't really think it does anything for the story. But yeah. The scene where basically Sandman builds a sandcastle for his dying daughter, which is kind of sweet, but it's pretty good though. I will admit that. But this film still isn't the Raimi cut. Yeah, there's also this weird like nightmare scene or something like I don't really know. Like there's this scene where basically like he sees like Venom in the reflection of a mirror, but like Venom doesn't look right. It looks like what they did to Snake Eyes and G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra. But that's beyond the point. A lot of the photos from this video were actually taken from a Twitter account who uploaded all these images to begin with. His name is Will. I think I can try and find his Twitter account, and basically I will probably put it in the link in the description to see more of this stuff. But I am going to mention that he did manage to find all these scenes, and basically that's where some of these images come from. Now we get into the real stuff. Battle between Sandman and Spider-Man, which eventually had Sandman's daughter and wife come up to basically see him, with the help of a doctor who was featured in the teaser trailer, who was ultimately cut from the film, basically bringing them to basically where they were fighting. This would lead to basically the final act, where basically Sandman had a change of heart and all that kind of thing. Although the scene in the original cut is actually a little bit better than this, but I do have to admit it is interesting to see what could have happened. Maybe give us a happy ending to this character. An alternative meetup of Eddie Brock and the Sandman, which might actually be a wee bit better than the version that we got in the film. But the biggest problem with this scene is that it is kind of similar to this. Oh, and we never talk about that. Never. There is also this hashtag thing on YouTube known as Release the Raimi Cut, which has got a lot of videos tackling this subject. Some of the most interesting are some of these images that were featured on the William Twitter. There's an alternate version of Venom's costume from the film, which looks a lot more better than the one that we actually got, and looks more like the comics. And also, I have to admit, I do kind of like his design. Another interesting thing is actually from that crappy video game. Iron Man was originally going to be in the game, but I think they kind of cut him. Plus, his design doesn't really look like the character, and plus, maybe because Marvel was working on a project of him, they decided to cut it. There's also this very cute scene that was deleted where Peter spins a web for this young little kid. It's very, very sweet, and yeah, I will admit, I wish it was in the film, but it is a little bit too cutesy, but I would like to see it in the film. Now, here we go. It's time for the big ones. Venom originally looked like this in the teaser trailer that was shown at Comic-Con, and a lot of people have been discussing this scene because damn does he look good and threatening. You can maybe check the scene out if you want. Now, we all know the ending of Spider-Man 3, where Venom is defeated very, very easily. Peter uses all of the, pulls to basically make Venom like thingy. He also pulls Eddie out of the suit and basically Venom reveals his true form in front of Peter's eyes. This horrifying monster that grows into a ginormous state of a monster. It's huge and basically tries to kill him. But then Peter grabs one of the New Goblin's bombs and basically throws it at the symbiote. Eddie doesn't want him to do it and dies with the symbiote as well. But the most interesting thing is this is not the actual ending. But this is not the original ending. The original ending was much more darker in classic Raimi. Let's have a look at it, shall we? Thanks for the footage, by the way, but look, this is what the original ending actually looked like. Peter accidentally stabs Eddie, but then as the symbiote peels back to reveal that it's nothing but bones and Eddie's skull. The whole thing, literally, Eddie's body is released from the symbiote and then basically tries to attack Peter. It literally pulls him back and basically tries to attach back to him like it once did before. That's why that image is there. The whole thing basically tries to get him, but then Peter sees these rods and basically decides to pull them with his webs. He pulls them down and basically they all land onto the ground. Each one of them actually making the symbiote disappear due to the sound. One of them also goes through Eddie's skull. That's a bit dark. And basically the whole thing literally disappears. But anyways, let's talk about some of the theories that went down with this ending. One of the most infamous ones that I think of is possibly due to either studio interference or test audiences. So either test audience found this ending too dark and would basically give children childhood trauma. Or it basically causes this. Or maybe the studio thought it was way too dark for a family to see this and basically decided to change the ending with secret reshoots. So that's basically what they did. They did reshoots for this scene, but secret. A lot of these scenes were probably reshot. This is why the ending is a little bit different. But there still is evidence of like this Raimi cut still existing, and it's really interesting to think of. It would be interesting to see what Raimi's full vision for the film would have been like. It would have been classic Raimi, but I definitely think it would have been over 3 hours long. And plus, they didn't really have the budget able to do it. Even though they had $1 billion, the ideas that Raimi had were just too big. Hell, there was even going to be a goddamn final swing like there was in the other films. But due to the budgetary reasons, they had to cut it, and the only thing we have in the ending is that Mary Jane and Peter reconcile. I would like to see what Raimi's full vision for the film would be like, kind of like what they did with the Snyder Cut. But if there are some people that want to see it, it would be pretty good to see. Sadly, we will never get this answered. Even if you try to do a campaign, all the actors have gotten old, and basically it will never be able to do that. You could try and find the footage, but I'm not really sure if Raimi even knows. You need to ask him on Twitter or something, if he even has Twitter. Raimi would be very interesting to think about, as in for what his projects would be. I have heard that he's going to direct the newest Doctor Strange film, but I'm not really a big fan of Doctor Strange. Hell, I haven't even seen the first one. It's the one MCU film I haven't seen. But I am excited to see... I would like to see that maybe as an animated film. You reanimate the entire film, or basically you do manage to cycle up the footage and make a good cut. It would be 3 hours long, but yeah. The Raimi cut is an interesting idea. Raimi's films have got charm, while the other ones are not. Even though the MCU's Spider-Man is pretty good, they do kind of feel like films that feel similar to a John Hughes kind of project, with their kind of themes and how they tackle the stories, kind of similar to how an 80s college film would go. And then we've also got the Mark Webb films, which do not have charm and are mainly just made for money. Although I will admit, I did kind of enjoy bits of Amazing Spider-Man. And then, but the thing about Raimi's films, they have so much charm. Even though they're silly, they're like classic comic book films, because they're based on classic comic books. Characters talk like that. They're silly, but they're charming and have got so much joy behind them. They've got passion. That's the best part of Raimi's films. I would like to see what Raimi's cut would look like, but sadly we'll never be able to see it. Unless basically unless he still has the footage and can cut and make it into a full cut. But yeah, this is where we are. So I guess I'll see you on the next video, and it's not like I'm going to talk about another director's cut anytime soon. Oh, come on!
When I was a little lad many years ago, I was very sporty, folks, and yet I wasn't slow. My mammy called me pappy and my pappy called me fool. Laughed at every little thing that was against the rule.